Hello, hello, and welcome to Beyond the Business Suit. My name is Kailei Carr. I'm your host, and I am so thrilled to be with you today. We have a heartfelt conversation today that I thought would be a great one to have on LinkedIn Live because it's so important now, especially. So, before I bring our guest up, I will share a little bit about our guest, who is Nicki Anderson. Nicki Anderson is a visionary leader with over 30 years of experience in leadership, strategic growth, and team development. She made history as the first female CEO of the Naperville Chamber of Commerce, which is located outside of Chicago, and created a pioneering leadership program at Benedictine University, which is where I met Nicki. A former wellness entrepreneur, Nicki now leads L3 Consulting, focused on love-led leadership, which we will be getting into today, which helps individuals lead with heart and compassion. She also serves as Director of Strategic Partnerships for the DuPage Foundation, is deeply involved in her community and deeply connected to many organizations and individuals. So, Nicki, welcome to Beyond the Business Suit.
It's lovely to see you. Thank you for having me. I love listening to your show. It's always so inspiring. So the fact that I'm here with you today, I'm filled with gratitude. So thank you.
Uh, well, this is a long time coming, and I know the timing is still perfect.
Yeah.
and and I'm really, really thrilled to have this conversation. I must say that if there's anybody who's watching us right now live on LinkedIn or any other platform, feel free to put in the chat where you're calling from or watching us from around the world. And we would also invite you, if you have any questions throughout, feel free to put them in the comment section or in the chat, and we will try to address as many questions that may arise during our conversation. But to kick us off, Nicki, I mentioned in the introduction your work around love-led leadership. And honestly, we've been connected for, gosh, over 5 years now. And when I saw you start posting on LinkedIn about love-led leadership, I thought, oh my goodness, like we need to have a conversation. Number one, it was so inspiring. Number two, not I don't know anybody else who's really talking about this. And number three, I knew how needed it was, especially now in this moment in our country, in the world. So, given your rich leadership journey, what called you to this chapter of love-led leadership?
I love that question because it there's so many thoughts that come to mind. But for this conversation, the beauty of age is wisdom, right? And you never really know how wisdom shows up. Is it just like, well, I'm just full of this wisdom and it just pours out in every conversation? But it's not true. It shows up when you least expect it. And so one day, as I do, I was having my meditation or prayer session and came out of it. And there's a poster above my desk that says love. And it was like this thunderbolt. I am not kidding you, that just said love led leadership. And I was like, love led leadership. And it was like love led leadership, love led leadership. And I think that prior to that moment, I had just come off of a very difficult experience with a leader. I had been the leader my whole life. And so this moment made me reflect on my leadership. Gosh, how had I been doing? Had I really honored the people that I was given to lead? What did that look like? So it really made me start questioning the whole idea of leadership and how and why people show up as they do. And that's really, I am by nature a very curious person, but I'm also, as you know, a very passionate person. And I said, I need to know more. And that's kind of where it all started.
I love, Nicki, I already knew that you were my people. I've known that for a long time. and the download of love led leadership. You know, that's how I get a lot of the work that I do. Like that's how it comes, so I can relate to it. But let's be honest, love is not the primary topic in leadership.
No.
As we think about organizations and what people are talking about and how we even talk to each other and how we correspond with each other, like love, although it sometimes may be present, I would argue, oftentimes it is not something that we have been taught to lean into in organizations. So one, what how would you define love-led leadership? And two, why do you think this needs to be a topic and in the forefront of organizations right now?
Yeah. There's so many responses that I have. I think that in my opinion, I believe we are all born to love and to be loved. I believe that in every part of my being. I think what happens over time is that we put that aside for all of the other things that we think we need to show up as. Um, and so over time, with our experiences and with the way the pressures of life, the expectations, and so forth, I think that just becomes stifled. It also becomes inappropriate, right? Because what we think of love tends to be more romantic, when really the idea of love-led leadership is action, right? And how are you showing up human to human? And so I would argue that showing up every day with love is not only extremely courageous, but vital for a business of collaboration, of trust, of a connection, of all the things that I think are lacking because we don't bring that love. What was really interesting, Kailei, is that when this love-led leadership came to me, I started researching, and the first thing I found was a podcast. Not a podcast, forgive me. I'm on a pod. It was a TED Talk on love-led leadership, leading with love and the
Wow.
power of it. But he gave a lot of statistical information, right? What businesses would probably want to hear. I remember posting my very first post that alluded to love as in leadership, and it was sort of like pressing the button, go, okay, I'm putting it out there. It was very, very difficult, because how in the world do you put those two together? Here's the other thing, is that when we think of leadership, we think of our profession. We think of how the office, when we're with our colleagues. Leadership is I like to say, how I live is how I lead. So how I'm
Mm.
showing up everywhere with my family, with my friends, in a volunteer situation, at work. Why should that be changing? It shouldn't. And so if love is a priority of mine and I am connecting with that, it will show up in all areas. But it takes time to develop that. And that's kind of the process of love-led leadership. But one of it is self-care, right? I have to be okay with me, with all of my flaws and foibles, right? Because when I accept that part of me, it makes it so much easier to go out and accept that in everybody else. When I'm not connected to myself and I'm limiting that acceptance, if I don't see myself as perfect in some way, then I am limiting then how I see and welcome and interact with others. So that's one of the first pillars of love.
Mm.
So, and I know that's part of conscious leadership as well. So,
Yes. No, that's so good. That is so good. And even you equating this approach and philosophy to being courageous. I
mm,
remember hearing about, and I think Brene Brown talks about this, about how she discovered that the word courage comes from heart.
yes.
So leading with heart, like
Mm,
that's what we're talking about.
yeah.
That is what we're talking about. And leadership requires courage. So leadership, what I'm hearing you say is leadership requires heart.
Mhm.
love led. Like it requires
Yes.
us to be love led.
Yes. Yes. It's
Yeah.
just that human to human connection, right? Which I feel like we are sorely lacking, right? And
Yes.
seeing each other as humans, as we are, flaws and all, right?
Yeah.
Which is difficult to do.
Why do you think we have gotten so far away from this? You know, and being connecting with each other as humans in our leadership. Like, what? How did that even happen?
Because I think we confused leadership. I think that we put leadership outside of human relationships. I think
Mm,
leadership was leadership was a way we are supposed to show up versus how we need to show up. So I think that with leadership, it became this is how I show up in the office. This is how I interact. This is professional. This is leadership. And, we've heard probably in the last 10 years, maybe, soft skills are coming back. Love isn't a soft skill, man. It's a life skill, right?
yes.
It is a hard skill. I mean, it's all of that. And I think that we really lost any kind of heart, emotion, love in action when we started defining leadership. Here are the 10 ways to be a leader, right?
Mhm, mhm.
It's funny. When I started Love Led Leadership, my what I always have to be careful of thinking it's my work. It's not. Um, but I thought I would go into organizations and I would talk about Love Led Leadership, and everybody would walk away inspired, and the world would change. Um, I've realized how incredibly personal it is, because first you have to be willing to look here, and that's really, really hard.
Yeah.
So being willing and able and open to doing the work of, do I love myself, right? And there's been speculation in the world of mental health about, is it a requirement to love myself before I can love others? Can we learn love? I would say absolutely, right? But it's the awareness of it first. If you're not aware that, well, you know what, maybe I'm not there yet, but I'm willing to learn. Or, why am I not connected to myself? Is it those imperfections? You've heard that sometimes when you are really bothered by a behavior in someone, very often it's because it's reflecting something within that you're not crazy about, right? So again,
Right.
it goes back to when those imperfections of ourself, when we can go, hey, I got to give myself a little bit of grace. It just makes it easier to move outside of that. And then when you see others, you can offer them that same grace. But don't confuse grace and boundaries, because that happens sometimes. Grace doesn't mean.
Ooh. Can you I feel like we can't just let that one go.
Um,
Let's talk more about that. Say more about grace and boundaries.
so grace is, I forgive you. Boundaries is, but I can't stay here with you.
Ooh.
Okay. Another example would be like, I understand that you're hurting, but I need to heal too. Right. So it's that I can honor that, but I also have to honor myself. Right.
Yes.
Um, Go ahead.
No, no, I just said
Oh, okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And grace allows for imperfection in ourselves and others, while boundaries protect our energy and our values.
Wow. So good. So good. I appreciate you recognizing and calling out how these are not soft skills.
Mm,
these these are not soft skills. I over the course of the past couple of months, my team and I have been going into a few organizations to bring our conscious leadership framework, and these are, immersive, intensive, conversations where people have to look inward,
mhm.
and that is uncomfortable, and there is nothing soft about it. And so I'm curious from your perspective for those who are maybe they are realizing that they have been conditioned to be resistant to some of these conversations, but maybe curious about building the strength
Mm.
of more compassion and heart and love in their leadership. What would you say could be a good first step for them?
I think it's just that kind of that self-evaluation, right? Like why am I interested in this? What part of this conversation is pulling me in, right? Because I think for everybody, it's a little bit different why that conversation would be very difficult, why that introspection would be difficult, right? Sometimes beyond my level of understanding or expertise. But I think it's the curiosity of, I wonder why that's so important to me or why I'm intrigued by it.
Mm,
And kind of following that because I think the idea of that self discovery is a very long journey. I will tell you, I have not figured out love led leadership. I am learning every single day how leading with love is changing my life and the hope of maybe um, changing others, not because of what I say, but because I believe in them. And I do. And so, I think it's understanding that this is not something that you need to or can figure out in 7 steps, right?
right.
Because
Which is
that
what we want, right? Like, give me the checklist.
you're exactly right. That it really, as nice and neat as that is, it doesn't work that way. Introspection and learning about yourself in all stages of life is a constant journey. And it's just being open to it being hard, sometimes uncomfortable, which we are not used to. We know who likes to be uncomfortable, right?
Right.
But it's amazing what happens when you come out on the other side of that discomfort. And it's like, wow, yeah. Or
Yeah.
sometimes it's like, oh,
Right. Right. I always say that there's an ow in the middle of growth for a reason,
oh, beautiful.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm curious. You mentioned, how you're still growing in this yourself, and we all, I mean, we're all masterpieces and work in progress, works
yeah,
in progress at the same
always.
time. What are some of the things that you've learned about yourself as you've been embracing more love-led leadership?
I mean, how stuck we get, right?
Mm,
Or how performative we can be.
mm,
And what I mean by that is it's what I alluded to just a few minutes ago about the 7 steps. Okay, I have these 7 steps. Now I'm going to do them. But am I really embodying them and feeling it and understanding it? Or am I doing it because it's the right thing to do and it looks good? I'm now going, I don't know. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. And I wonder why. Um, and so rather than just ignoring things that I would in the past, because that's going to be just too complicated to try and figure out, or even when I do decide to do the work, it's not always going to come out in a way that I always understand. And that's okay.
mm, yeah,
Sometimes it's just part of doing the work. There aren't always answers, and we so desperately want answers. That's the ego, right? That's another thing that I talk about, the power of the ego and how we always have to have the answers. I'm learning that no, I don't. I have to trust. I really have to trust. And sometimes the more I trust, the more I'm able to see and experience in a much fuller, in a much fuller, more meaningful way, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. We can receive. We're disconnected or not as attached to outcomes of, what
Yes.
we think it should be, and we can open ourselves up to what can be
What's
additive and
possible.
valuable. When what's possible, absolutely. Well, if you are just joining us on LinkedIn, and you're jumping in mid question or mid conversation and you've been liking what you've been hearing, but you may have some questions, feel free to put a comment in the chat here, and feel free to share any questions or comments that you have throughout our conversation. Nicki, we've been talking about the importance of love-led leadership and the power of it, the strength of it, the difficulties in, you know, um, incorporating it into our, practices.
Mhm.
Um, I'm, as you think about the practical ways we can integrate some
Mhm.
of this into our daily lives for our personal leadership, for the organizations, the teams we lead. When a leader brings love into those daily interactions and decision making and what have you, what are some practical ways this can be leveraged and demonstrated?
Um, s- I think of a presentation that I was giving a few weeks ago, and it's listening, even when it's inconvenient, right? I don't have time or it's not really of interest, but really listening when it's inconvenient, you will learn something and you will walk away um, with something. Staying curious instead of jumping to judgment, right? Asking those questions instead of assuming you know the answer, right? Because it's much too easy, especially in a culture like ours where it's always about the answer and less about the questions, right? um, Speaking truth to kindness, I think that's really important, and that means having difficult conversations. You can have difficult conversations and still be kind, right? It goes back to what I said earlier about grace and boundaries, right? Really understanding that I am not helping somebody if I'm telling them all the time that they're great or avoiding those difficult conversations. I am not helping them to grow, right? Goes back to the ow and grow. That's a
Yeah.
difficult conversation, but that ow allows them to go to that next level. They might not see it, and it's super uncomfortable for me, but I know that it goes back to that courage, that my goal in that is only to help them discover the best in themselves. So remembering that, holding space for someone's challenges in a really respectful but boundary filled way. Does that make sense? Like, and
Yeah.
so because I think we all have people in our lives that I'm honored when someone comes to me with a struggle. And of course, my job is to listen unless they're looking for something specific. Um, but giving them the space to figure it out, right? And being that space to help them figure it out. I think that's really important, because it can be so easy to get caught up in wanting to give immediate feedback or advice. So I think that's something, especially as leaders, going back to we always have to have the answer. No, you don't. Giving people that space to figure it out, and I think also just knowing when to walk away. Believe it or not, you
Hmm.
know. Um, I am always willing to have a conversation, even if it's a conversation in which I might disagree. But when it becomes less about a conversation and more about somebody winning, that's when I step away until we can come back and revisit the conversation in a mutually respectful way.
So powerful, so powerful. As I was listening to you, particularly on the first point, I was reminded of something, I don't know, a trend that I'm seeing. Yeah, I'm not saying it's a trend with all organizations, but we're seeing it in many of the clients that we're working with, is this sense of cultures being really nice to each other. And we tend to work with organizations that are very collaborative and have a higher level of intention and consciousness, and there's this, oh, but we're nice to each other, and then when it comes to feedback, they're not getting what they need to move forward, because sometimes people are tiptoeing around what needs to be said. So I really appreciate the emphasis on, leading with love means that you're having the courage to have the hard conversations. Because if we truly love the people that we're working with and seeing them as and interacting with them human to human, then we want the best in them. And in order to get the best out of some people, we need to bring some things to light that they may not see, which can be hard and may feel hard for them to take in the short term.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, 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 and yes.
Yes, yes. And I also appreciate the call out of creating the space for people to come to their own wisdom on their own.
Yes. Yeah, it's there. It's there.
It's there.
It's there.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many places for us to go. One thing that is coming up for me in this moment is where we are, and the examples of leadership that are present right now that may not be aligned with where we know leadership is going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's why this is so important now. This conversation is so important now. What is one of your greatest desires in terms of the ripple effect of this capital W work that you're doing?
So there's two things that came to mind as I was listening to you. And one is being mindful not to limit leadership to your office. So we are all leaders, which means we all have a responsibility on how that we show up. So again, leadership isn't just in the office, it's everywhere. It's as a parent, it's as a friend, it's as an auntie, it's right. So that's one. The second thing is, if we look outside of our professional or our work world, we see a world in which it's so big. And if you have empathy, it can be so heavy. The one thing that I talk to my clients and others about is we cannot take it all on. We can be empathetic. We can even be compassionate, but we cannot take it all on, because then we're frozen. Then we do nothing. What we can do is have conversations like this. What we can do is, when we see somebody at work that just has been off a little bit, go, hey, you want to go out and have a cup of coffee and maybe just listen? Or, so many things that we can do that creates a ripple effect. And just a real easy example is in the morning when you're driving to work and somebody cuts you off and it ruins your day, right? Are you going to allow that behavior to create your ripple? Maybe rethink it and go, I wonder why they're in such a hurry. I hope everything's okay. Right? Versus, what an idiot.
Right.
It's so easy to do. So really rethinking how our ripple, what ripples we're allowing. And so every time I interact with somebody, I see it as a ripple. Do I want that to be a positive or a negative ripple effect? Right?
Mm.
So I think that when we look at it's so much and so big, it's what can I do right now, right here, that can create this ripple that the best I can hope for is that it will create a ripple and we will start to have more conversations like this.
I love it. How do you think the world would be different if we all led from love?
Oh my gosh. I was thinking about this because this is a question. So I think I mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was when we were off camera or here, where I said, I believe we're all born in love, with love, to love. I firmly
Mhm.
believe that. I think that life circumstances maybe kind of take us in different directions and we kind of stifle that. So I think that if we're able to talk about it and allow the idea of love, which again, we don't want to confuse it with romantic love. It is an action in how we interact every single day. What does that look like? So I think the world would be, I mean, imagine showing, like, I have the really good fortune of working somewhere where I love everybody I work with. Like, I just do. I feel so lucky. That has a ripple effect to where I go out and I am like, things are good despite what I know out there, right? And it's not to ignore it, it's to say, this is a really good thing. How can I share this? Well, how I share it is that when I leave work every day, my heart is full, my mind is full of good things, and it forwards to every interaction I have that day. So the world, just like Kylie, I think we know if we bring more love every day, it changes conversations, it changes interactions, it changes the way we see and feel and believe what's possible.
Yes.
Versus counter, if you look at the other side of it, the not so good side, that gets us stuck and angry and negative, and we go nowhere. And that is not a ripple that I want to be part of.
Here, 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 here. Ah, yeah, it is such a, I often have to remind myself how it is such a privilege and an honor, which sometimes, I know that it's a privilege and an honor to do the work that I do, to truly love the people who I work with or with whom I work, as you mentioned as well, and even my clients. I mean, there have been many times in our team meetings when we'll say, okay, see you later, love you. Like, that is just,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how we operate at the Asbury Group. And there have been times when, I'm with clients and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, wow, this is my life. This is my work.
Mhm.
Right. And when you can bring that vibration, that frequency to conversations, people shift, things are healed, things are better. Like, we can feel it. And what I have to remind myself of is that is a luxury not everyone has been exposed to, not everyone has experienced. And so I am really grateful that we are having this conversation today, because for those who have not experienced that,
Mm.
and again, we're talking about leadership in all areas and not just in the office,
Right.
any area of your life, in your communities, in your, like in the daily interactions with your family. We say we love our family, but are we really leading
Yeah.
with love? Like, when we're able to do that, Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
I will tell
magic can
you
happen.
yes, I agree with you about understanding how incredibly fortunate I am that I have brain space, right, to be thinking about this and spending time working with others to talk about it. One of the game changers for me, and this is just something little that it's a starting point. Be here. Two words.
Mm,
Be here.
yes.
When I'm with my grandchildren, right? You were asking how they were, and I'll find myself, I'll be distracted, and they're telling me something in this sweet little voice of theirs, and I'm distracted, and I immediately go, "Be here, be here." It's the best gift I can give them, is to be here. It's the best gift I can give to myself. When I'm with you having this conversation, I'm like, how, how did I, wow, right? To be here with you and really feel this conversation and this experience. I think we forget that because we are constantly distracted. Even if it's a 10-second be here, be here, be here. Even maybe if it's a difficult time, be here. There's lessons to be learned. Be here.
Mm. So simple yet powerful.
Mm, mm,
Powerful.
mm.
Well, Nikki, we're at the time in our conversation. We have our quick fire round. Now, I will say again, if you're watching, you have questions for Nikki, please put it in the comments. And in the meantime, I have 5 quick fire
Okay.
questions for you. My first question is, and we call this the final 5, by the way.
Okay.
So, what does conscious leadership mean to you?
What does conscious leadership? Okay. Leading intentionally, I think, is first. Like leading intentionally. I think it's being grounded in compassion. And I think it's being fully aware in how you show up,
Mm,
fully connected. When we were saying, like, when you're not connected, it doesn't allow for space for grace, space for the things that are so necessary to to be conscious, to be connected. Um, so that's, I know I'm gonna leave this call and go, oh wait.
no, that was perfect. And you were talking earlier about being here, be here. That's a part of it. Beautiful. Second question is, what is one thing that has lit you up over the past week?
Every time I learn something new, I am lit up. And every day, my grandfather used to say, it's a sad day when you don't learn something new. So
Yes.
every day I am learning something new, and that just it excites me. I'm, like a kindergartner in their first day going, I didn't know that. So yeah.
Can you think of something like recently that you learned new?
Oh my gosh. Well, in my current role that I'm in, I'm learning something new every day with the process of foundations, and so just learning statistics about work that we do and how we impact, like, oh, I did not realize that, or learning about a new organization that there's a need out there for that. I did not know
Mm,
that. So yeah, learning. I'm kind of a learning nerd.
I love it. I'm with you. We never stop learning.
Right? Yep, yep, yep. Keep the
So
brain
my
sharp.
third Yes, exactly. So my third question is, how would you like someone to describe the legacy you've made on the world?
I think what I mentioned earlier is always doing my best to show up fully when I'm with someone, to be fully with them. Um, and then to know that perhaps I left them better than I found them, not because I saved them, but because I believed in them. I believe in everybody. I truly do. I do believe in that. Um, but I can't believe in them more than they do. I can just perhaps set the stage.
Beautiful. Number 4 is, what is some growth work? We talk about growth work a lot here on Beyond the Business Suit and in the Asbury group, growth work. And there's an owl in the middle of that too. So what is some growth work you would like listeners to maybe incorporate over the next couple of weeks to strengthen their leadership?
Um, this may sound overused, but starting your day with intention. I always take 5 minutes because we don't have a lot of time and we have to be realistic. And I always take 5 minutes to say, put me where I need to be today. Give me what I need to do today. And may I do it with heart. May I do it with my head too, but may I doing it with unfailing passion. That's one thing. So really start your morning, whatever that may mean for you, right? Maybe it is, being here for 5 minutes, just being connected with what's going on in my world, whatever that might be. But starting the day with intention, I really think that's important. How do you want to show up, right? How is it that you want to show up today? And then my favorite is that midday big breath. I kind of just assess, how did I show up this morning? How am I doing? Am I still connected here and here? And am I aligned right now? Right. So I always take that midday pause to just kind of check in with myself. How are things going? And if something feels off, I try and figure out what that might be. If I have the time, I might take a walk. But yeah, that midday pause is a big one for me, because we can get so caught up in everything, and it might be just closing my door and coming in and just going, okay, how are things today? Am I where I need to be? Yeah.
That's so good. So good. I'm going to incorporate that into my midday practices as well. That's a great one. So, number 5 is,
Yeah.
what is one thing you're looking forward to for the remainder of the year?
One thing I'm looking forward to. Well, I love summer. That is my favorite season. I am also a gardener, so I would
Mm.
say harvesting and enjoying the bounty. But I also tell all my fellow gardeners that right now, food pantries are desperate for good, healthy produce and food. So if you're a gardener, plant extra and share it with your local food pantry, because our families and perhaps friends need it. And there's nothing that gives me greater joy than to know someone's eating those tomatoes or those onions or those peppers, that I can share that bounty with others. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Such a great idea. Such a great idea. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, I do have a bonus question.
Okay.
And yes, and that is, if people are listening and they want to connect with you further about love-led leadership and the work that you're doing in this world, how can they connect with you?
You can connect with me via my website, Nicki@NickiAnderson.com. That's an easy one. Or you can reach out to me at Nicki@NickiAnderson.com, right? NickiAnderson.com is my website. Nicki@NickiAnderson.com is directly to me. And as you know, I always respond. So if you have a question or want to learn more, I am always available. So.
Great. And if you are listening to us on the podcast, you know that you can go to beyondthebusinesssuit.com, where we will have the notes to this episode, and that will have Nicki's information. And if you are not watching the video as well, then I will let you know she is an Nicki, Nicki, because I know there are many different variations. So if you're wondering, okay, which Nicki is it? Which spelling? It's Nicki.
Thank
Well,
you.
Nicki, I so appreciate your time, your wisdom, and this beautiful work that you are doing in the world, and helping us to come back to what is most important. What is most important? What is more important than love? I don't know. I don't even know. So thank you for the reminder and the practical ways that we can be better humans and show up better for each other, and express better self-leadership and leadership with others as well. So thank you so much, Nicki.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the work that you're doing. And together we can have a really great ripple effect. So I'm honored to be here
Yes.
and grateful to spend this time with you. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Be well.